In rapper YNW Melly's witness tampering trial, state attorneys confirming the witness tampering charges dropped against the rapper. Before that announcement, the jury selection was expected to take place tomorrow. This comes as the rapper, whose real name is Jamell Demons, is accused of murdering two childhood friends back in 2018 and then allegedly make it look like a drive-by shooting. State attorneys are still moving forward with the homicide case. That is expected to take place in January of next year.
YNW Melly just caught a major break in his case. After years of fighting for his freedom, prosecutors in Broward County dropped the witness tampering charges against him on Monday, January 20th, 2026. This is the same artist who's been locked up since February 2019, facing the possibility of never walking free again. The same case that's had multiple mistrials, courtroom drama, and headlines for almost 7 years. Now, one of the major charges against him just disappeared. This situation involves Jamell Demons, better known as YNW Melly, a 26-year-old rapper from Gifford, Florida, who exploded onto the scene in 2018 with tracks that hit millions of streams. The state came after him hard, building a case that could have put him away forever. But now, prosecutors are backing off one of their key charges. This goes way deeper than what you saw on social media. From the moment Melly got arrested in 2019 to this development just days ago, this case has had turns nobody expected. Here's what actually went down. Let me break down what these charges were, why they got dropped, and what this means for Melly's fight for freedom. Let's start from the beginning. To understand this, you gotta know the whole timeline of YNW Melly's case. Jamell Demons came up in Gifford, Florida, a small community near Vero Beach. He started making music young, and by 2017-2018, he was building real momentum. His track Murder on My Mind dropped in 2018 and eventually went multi-platinum, hitting over 1 billion streams. He had collaborations with Kanye West and was signed to 300 Entertainment. At just 19 years old, Melly was on the verge of becoming one of hip-hop's biggest stars. But on February 13th, 2019, everything changed. Melly was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree elimination in connection with the 2018 incidents involving his friends and fellow YNW crew members Anthony Williams, known as YNW Sackchaser, and Christopher Thomas Jr., known as YNW Juvie. According to prosecutors, Melly and his associate Cortland Henry, known as YNW Bortland, allegedly staged the scene to look like a drive-by incident. The state's case was built on forensic evidence, phone records, and circumstantial details that prosecutors believed proved their theory. They were so confident that they decided to seek the most extreme penalty possible. For over 4 years, Melly sat in Broward County Jail waiting for his day in court. The case went to trial in June 2023. For weeks, the courtroom became the center of attention as prosecutors laid out their evidence and Melly's defense team fought back. The trial ended in a mistrial after jurors couldn't reach a unanimous verdict. The state immediately said they would retry the case. A second trial was scheduled for 2024, but it kept getting delayed. Hearings happened, motions were filed, and the case dragged on. Throughout all of this, Melly remained in custody at Broward County Jail. His legal team continued fighting, filing appeals, and challenging various aspects of the prosecution's case. Here's where the witness tampering charges come into play. According to court documents, prosecutors allege that Melly tried to communicate with potential witnesses while he was locked up. The specific charges claimed he attempted to influence or interfere with witness testimony in his case. These charges were serious because they could add years to any potential sentence and made him look even worse to potential jurors. The witness tampering allegations suggested that while Melly was in jail, he was trying to reach out to people connected to his case. Prosecutors filed these additional charges separately, which meant he was fighting on multiple fronts. Not only did he have to defend against the elimination charges, but now he also had to deal with accusations that he was trying to manipulate the legal process itself. For someone already facing the worst possible outcome, these additional charges created even more problems. Defense attorneys have to explain to juries why their client is charged with trying to influence witnesses. It makes the defendant look guilty, like they're trying to hide something or fix the case. Even if the tampering charges aren't proven, the accusation alone damages credibility. Now, this is when things really popped off with these specific charges. The witness tampering charges were filed as a separate case from the main elimination charges. According to documents from the Broward County State Attorney's Office, prosecutors believed they had evidence that Melly was attempting to contact witnesses while incarcerated at Broward County Jail. Jails monitor inmate communications. Phone calls are recorded, mail is screened, and visitor logs are kept. When prosecutors filed witness tampering charges, it suggested they found something in those monitored communications that they believed constituted an attempt to influence witnesses. The specific details of what communications triggered these charges were never fully made public, but the state felt confident enough to file formal charges. The timing of these charges matters. They came after Melly had already been in custody for years, suggesting prosecutors were going through his communications and found something they considered actionable. In high-profile cases, authorities pay extra attention to inmate communications, specifically looking for this kind of activity. Witness tampering charges in Florida carry serious penalties. They can add years to a sentence and are considered crimes that show disrespect for the legal system itself. For Melly's defense team, fighting these charges meant proving either that the communications didn't happen, weren't intended to influence witnesses, or didn't meet the legal definition of tampering. The charges created additional complexity in an already complicated case. Melly's lawyers now had to prepare for multiple trials or negotiate on multiple fronts. The state had more leverage in potential plea negotiations because they could threaten to pursue all charges if Melly didn't cooperate. What's interesting is that witness tampering cases often rely on interpretation. A defendant might argue they were just trying to maintain relationships with friends or family who happen to be potential witnesses. The state has to prove there was specific intent to influence testimony, not just general communication. This gray area is where defense attorneys fight hardest. For months, these charges hung over Melly's case. Every court appearance, every hearing, these additional allegations were part of the picture. His legal team had to address them in motions and filings. The media coverage of his case always mentioned them alongside the main charges. The hip-hop community and legal experts had strong reactions when these charges were first filed. When news first broke about the witness tampering charges, social media had mixed reactions. Some fans saw it as prosecutors piling on charges to pressure Melly into a plea deal. Others pointed to it as evidence that the state had a strong case. Legal experts who followed the case noted that these kinds of additional charges are common in high-profile cases. Defense attorneys not connected to the case commented that witness tampering allegations, even if eventually dropped, serve a purpose for prosecutors. They make the defendant look worse, create more pressure, and give the state more negotiating power. Some lawyers said publicly that these charges might be weak but were filed anyway for strategic reasons. Melly's supporters pointed out that he had already been locked up for years without bail. They argued that the state was throwing everything at him, hoping something would stick. His family members posted on social media defending him and claiming the charges were unfair. The prosecution never made detailed public statements about the specific evidence for the tampering charges. In court filings, they referenced communications and potential witness contact, but the full details remained sealed or were presented in closed hearings. This left a lot of speculation about what exactly Melly was accused of doing. Other artists who had faced similar legal situations commented on the case. Some pointed out that jail communications are always monitored and that inmates have to be extremely careful about what they say on recorded phone lines. The fact that Melly allegedly got caught suggested either he wasn't careful or the state was reading into communications that were innocent. Radio stations in South Florida covered the developments extensively. Local news stations in Fort Lauderdale and Miami reported on every court appearance and every new charge. The case had become one of the most watched legal battles involving a hip-hop artist in recent years. Legal observers noted that in cases seeking the maximum penalty, prosecutors often file every possible charge they can justify. The strategy is to overwhelm the defense and create multiple avenues for conviction. Even if some charges don't stick, others might. It's a common tactic in serious criminal cases. But here's what most people missed about how these charges affected everything. The witness tampering charges created real problems for Melly's defense strategy. Every time his lawyers tried to present him as someone who respected the legal process, prosecutors could point to these allegations. The charges also affected potential plea negotiations. Prosecutors had more leverage and could offer to drop the tampering charges in exchange for concessions on the main case. For Melly's public image, these charges added to a narrative that he was trying to avoid accountability. Even people who believed he might be innocent of the main charges questioned why he would allegedly try to contact witnesses if he had nothing to hide. It's the kind of accusation that sticks in people's minds regardless of whether it's proven. The legal costs multiplied. Fighting witness tampering charges requires its own investigation, expert witnesses, and court time. Melly's defense team had to dedicate resources to challenging these allegations while also preparing for the main trial. Every additional charge means more lawyer hours, more expert fees, more everything. Media coverage of the case always included mention of the tampering charges. Headlines would read about the elimination case and then note the additional allegations. Even in articles sympathetic to Melly, journalists had to mention that he faced these other charges. It became part of his story whether his team wanted it to be or not. The impact on his music career was significant too. While Melly's catalog continued to stream and earn money, the additional charges made it harder for his team to position him for any kind of comeback. Record labels and potential collaborators look at the full legal picture, and witness tampering allegations make everyone more cautious. Some legal experts following the case suggested these charges were always going to be difficult difficult to prove. Witness tampering requires showing specific intent to influence testimony, not just general communication. Without concrete evidence of threats or promises, proving tampering beyond a reasonable doubt is challenging, but the charges served their purpose by creating pressure and complicating Melly's defense. But here's what most people missed in all the headlines. On Monday, January 20th, 2026, everything changed with these specific charges. According to multiple sources including TMZ, NBC Miami, Local 10 News, the Miami Herald, and the Sun Sentinel, prosecutors in Broward County filed a motion to drop the witness tampering charges against YNW Melly. The state attorney's office didn't provide detailed public explanation for why they dropped these charges. In court filings, prosecutors simply moved to dismiss the witness tampering case. This is significant because it suggests either the evidence wasn't as strong as they initially believed, or they determined these charges weren't worth pursuing given the resources needed to prove them. Legal experts immediately noted how unusual this development was. Prosecutors rarely drop charges in high-profile cases unless they have serious doubts about securing a conviction. The fact that the state decided to abandon the witness tampering allegations after pursuing them for an extended period suggests their case had weaknesses they couldn't overcome. The timing is also interesting. These charges were dropped on January 20th, 2026, the same day as the presidential inauguration. Some observers noted that major legal developments sometimes get buried in news cycles dominated by other events. Whether the timing was strategic or coincidental, it meant the story got less attention than it might have otherwise. For Melly's defense team, this represents a significant victory. Getting charges dropped is always better than fighting them in court, even if you believe you can win. It removes one variable from an already complex legal situation. Defense attorney David Howard, who represents Melly, would have been pushing for this outcome for months or even years. The dismissal of these charges doesn't directly affect the main elimination case, but it has important indirect effects. First, it removes a piece of evidence that prosecutors could have used to paint Melly as someone trying to manipulate the legal system. Second, it eliminates potential additional prison time if he were convicted on the main charges. Third, it shows that the state's case isn't as airtight as they might have presented it. What makes this particularly significant is that witness tampering allegations are exactly the kind of thing that influences juries. Even if someone is found not guilty of the main charges, having a separate conviction for trying to interfere with witnesses creates a terrible impression. By getting these charges dropped before any future trial, Melly's team removed a major obstacle. The state's decision to drop these charges raises questions about their overall case. If the witness tampering allegations couldn't be proven, what else in their case might have problems? Defense attorneys will definitely use this development to argue that prosecutors overreached and filed charges they couldn't support. It creates doubt about the state's judgment and case preparation. For people following the case closely, this development came as a surprise. The witness tampering charges had been part of the case for so long that many assumed they would go to trial alongside the main charges. The fact that prosecutors quietly dropped them suggests behind-the-scenes developments that the public hasn't seen. The bigger picture here is about prosecutorial discretion. State attorneys have the power to pursue or drop charges based on their assessment of the evidence and their likelihood of success. The decision to drop the witness tampering charges shows that even in a case they're pursuing aggressively, they recognize when certain allegations aren't worth pursuing. This also highlights how cases evolve over time. Evidence that seemed strong when charges were first filed might look weaker years later after defense attorneys have investigated and challenged it. Witnesses might become less reliable, communications might have innocent explanations, or legal standards might be harder to meet than originally thought. The witness tampering charges always seemed like an add-on to the main case. They weren't as serious or as central to the prosecution's theory of what happened. By dropping them, prosecutors can focus their resources on the charges they believe they can actually prove. It's a strategic calculation about where to invest time and effort. What's particularly interesting is what this means for any future plea negotiations. With the witness tampering charges off the table, prosecutors have less leverage. They can't threaten to pursue those charges or offer to drop them in exchange for concessions on the main case. This shifts the dynamics of any potential deal-making. For Melly personally, having these charges dropped while still incarcerated is bittersweet. On one hand, it's a clear victory and removes serious allegations. On the other hand, he's still facing the main charges and remains in custody. The witness tampering dismissal doesn't get him out of jail or resolve the case that's kept him locked up since 2019. The legal community watching this case took note of the development. Criminal defense attorneys shared the news as an example of how even strong-seeming charges can fall apart under scrutiny. Prosecutors in other jurisdictions might look at this case when deciding whether to file similar allegations in their own cases. So that's where we're at with this whole situation. As of January 20th, 2026, the witness tampering charges against YNW Melly have been officially dropped. According to NBC Miami, the Sun Sentinel, and other outlets, the Broward County State Attorney's Office filed the dismissal, and the court approved it. Those charges are gone. However, Melly still faces the 2 first-degree elimination charges that have been pending since 2019. The state has made clear they're proceeding with the main case. According to the Miami Herald and Local 10 News, prosecutors remain committed to retrying Melly after the mistrial in 2023. A new trial date hasn't been set yet as of this update. The case has been delayed multiple times over the years, and legal observers expect more hearings and motions before any trial actually begins. Melly remains in custody at Broward County Jail, where he's been held since his arrest nearly 7 years ago. The state's case for the main charges still relies on the evidence they presented in the first trial: forensic analysis, phone records, and their theory of what happened that night in 2018. Melly's defense team continues to challenge that evidence and maintain his innocence. The legal battle is far from over. Keep your eyes on several things moving forward. First, whether the state sets a firm trial date or if there will be more delays. Second, if Melly's defense team can use the dropped witness tampering charges to argue that other parts of the state's case are weak. Third, whether there's any movement toward a plea deal now that prosecutors have fewer charges to work with. The impact of dropping the witness tampering charges will become clearer in the coming months. If the case goes to trial again, the defense can point to this dismissal as evidence that prosecutors overreached. If there are plea negotiations, the state has less leverage without those additional charges hanging over Melly's head. The bigger picture shows how slowly the justice system moves in serious cases. Melly has been locked up since February 2019. That's almost 7 years of his life spent in jail waiting for resolution. Even with this recent victory on the witness tampering charges, the main case that determines his freedom remains unresolved. For the hip-hop community, Melly's case represents one of the longest-running legal battles involving a major artist. Unlike cases that resolve quickly with plea deals or trials, this situation has dragged on through delays, mistrials, and now the dropping of additional charges. It's a reminder of how complex and time-consuming serious criminal cases can be. The witness tampering dismissal is significant, but it doesn't change the fundamental reality Melly faces. He's still charged with 2 counts of first-degree elimination. He's still facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison if convicted. The stakes remain as high as they've ever been. For Melly's supporters, the dropped witness tampering charges offer hope that other parts of the state's case might also fall apart. The first trial ended in a mistrial, which means the jury couldn't unanimously agree the state proved its case beyond reasonable doubt. The media attention hasn't decreased despite the years. Local Florida news stations still cover every development. Hip-hop news outlets still report on every court filing. The case has maintained public interest because of Melly's music career and the serious nature of the charges. Looking at the timeline, Melly was 19 years old when he was arrested. He's now 26. He spent his entire early 20s in custody waiting for this case to resolve. Whether he's ultimately convicted or acquitted, those years are gone. The state's decision to proceed with the main case shows they still believe they can secure a conviction. Despite the mistrial, despite the dropped witness tampering charges, despite the years of delays, prosecutors remain committed. They wouldn't continue investing resources if they didn't think they could win. The next few months will be critical. If a trial date gets set, both sides will have to prepare for another lengthy court battle. The case that seemed frozen for years might finally move towards some kind of resolution. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about the witness tampering charges getting dropped? Does this make you think the state's main case might be weaker than they claim? Or is this just prosecutors focusing on what matters most? Should Melly's team push for another trial soon or wait and keep fighting the case? How do you see this whole situation playing out? Drop all your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and I want to know where you stand on this. If this breakdown gave you the full story on Melly's charges getting dropped and kept it real from start to finish, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell too so you don't miss any updates on this case as it develops. Trust me, there's going to be more to this story, and you'll want to be here when the next chapter drops. Share this video with anyone who's been following Melly's case or anyone who needs to understand what really went down. The more people who know the full story, the better the conversations we can have about it. And if you want to see more deep dives like this on major hip-hop stories, let me know in the comments what situations you want me to break down next. I'm here to give you the facts without the fluff, and your support keeps this going. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.